Hello and welcome back. You're listening to Unreliable Sources, your bi-weekly briefing for mystery lovers, thriller junkies, and suspense addicts. I'm Mike Donohue, thriller author and devoted armchair detective. Let's get into it. On today's show, we're diving into some intriguing news from the entertainment world, including Vince Gilligan's mysterious new project and casting updates from Netflix's All the Sinners Bleed adaptation. We'll check out a heartwarming story about book bikes bringing literature to communities and look at some compelling new releases hitting shelves soon. Then we're diving into the divide between American and European crime fiction. Why do American thrillers focus on intimate betrayal while European mysteries tackle systemic corruption? What do our reading preferences reveal about cultural anxieties? Maybe it's more than just accents and settings. It's two fundamentally different ways of understanding crime and justice. Plus, as always, I'll let you in on what I've been reading and watching lately, including a disappointing adaptation that had so much potential. Let's kick things off with some recent headlines from the Book and Crime Beat. We finally have our first look at Pluribus, Vince Gilligan's first non-Breaking Bad project in years. The teaser trailer dropped for this Apple TV Plus series, and while details still remain scarce, it's giving off serious sci-fi vibes with what appears to be some darker undertones. Given Gilligan's track record with morally complex characters and slow burn tension, this one's definitely on my radar. Amazon is developing a series adaptation of Ruth Ware's The Lying Game. The book is a psychological thriller about four childhood friends expelled from boarding school after a game of lies goes too far. Years later, they reunite and must confront the deadly secret they thought they'd buried. This is the third project in development for Ware's books, joining Turn of the Key and the recently released The Woman in Cabin 10 on Netflix. Here's that feel-good story we all need. Publishers Weekly covered America's growing fleet of book bikes, mobile libraries on wheels bringing books directly to communities. These aren't just cute Instagram moments, they're genuinely filling gaps in book access, especially in neighborhoods without nearby bookstores or libraries. Some are run by indie bookstores, others by nonprofits, but they're all doing the same essential work, getting books into hands. In an era where we're constantly hearing about bookstore closures, library funding cuts, and dropping reading rates, it's refreshing to see some creative solutions rolling forward. Finally, more updates on Netflix adaptation of S.A. Cosby's All the Sinners Bleed. Daniel Ezra from All American and Andrea Cortez from Mayans MC and Bosch Legacy have been announced as cast regulars. They're joining previously announced leads Sope DeRiza, John Douglas Thompson, and Nicole Bayari. I'm keeping a close eye on this one. Cosby's novel is great, a brutal examination of racial tension, institutional failure, and the cost of seeking justice in a small southern town. The cast they're assembling suggests Netflix and all involved are taking this seriously. No release date yet, but this has all the makings of must-watch television for crime fiction fans. Now let's take a look at what's new and notable on shelves. Keep This For Me by Jennifer Fawcett, a psychological thriller about friendship, secrets, and the weight of promises. When a childhood friend goes missing, the protagonist must confront buried memories and dangerous truths. Fawcett's debut, Beneath the Stairs, earned strong reviews, so expectations are high for this follow-up. The Hitchhikers by Chevy Stevens. Stevens returns in what looks like a tense road thriller. She's consistently delivered page-turners in the past with complex female protagonists facing impossible situations. If you enjoyed her other works like Still Missing or Those Girls, this should be on your list. Darker Days by Thomas Olda Heivelt. For readers who like their mysteries with a heavy dose of horror, Heivelt delivers again. In Lockhaven, a quiet little town in Washington state, Bird Street is a special place. The residents of this pretty cul-de-sac on the edge of the woods are all successful, healthy, and happy. But come November, the darker days descend, bringing accidents, bad luck, conflict, and illness. The Dutch author has built a reputation for unsettling atmospheric stories that blur genre lines. Out on October 28th, this one promises the same dark magic. Guilty by Definition by Susie Dent. Regular listeners know I've developed a soft spot for cozy crime in recent years, and this debut from the Channel 4 Countdown regular looks intriguing. A murder at a word puzzle competition? Bibliophiles, puzzle people, and logophiles Should seek this one out. If you love wordplay and clever plotting with a dash of cozy, get this on your TBR. Finally, Remain by Nicholas Sparks and M. Night Shyamalan. Yep, you heard right. The romance novelist and the twist-ending director are collaborating on a thriller. Of sorts, maybe. This is either going to be brilliantly unexpected or fascinatingly weird. Either way, call me curious. The premise involves a family moving to a house with a dark history. A classic setup, but with these two names attached, who knows where it'll go. All right, let's move on to this episode's feature. Recently, looking back over my summer reading, I realized something. I'd ended up reading almost a 50-50 split between American and European crime fiction authors. It wasn't really intentional, or maybe subconsciously it was, but ping-ponging between the two traditions made me notice a few interesting things. Obviously, these observations won't apply to every book. Some will buck the trend, but in general, I think we can make some inferences about how the crime novels sitting on American nightstands tell fundamentally different stories than the ones from Europe. And I'm not just talking again about accents or settings. I'm talking about how we understand evil, justice, and what keeps us up at night. Let's dive in for a closer look. Here's the thing. When you compare American and European crime fiction, you're really looking at two distinct philosophies about human nature wrapped in murder mysteries. American crime fiction zooms in tight. It's personal, immediate, often claustrophobic. Think about the domestic thrillers that have dominated our bestseller list lately. Gone Girl, The Housemaid, Big Little Lies. These stories trap us inside marriages, neighborhoods, family secrets. The terror lives behind closed doors, and the villain is often someone you thought you knew. European crime fiction pulls the camera way back. Sure, there's a body, but the real crime, that's usually something systemic. Political corruption, historical trauma, the slow decay of social institutions. When a Swedish detective solves a murder, they're often uncovering something rotten in the entire society. The roots of this split actually share the same soil. Edgar Allan Poe, an American, essentially invented the detective story in the 1840s with C. Auguste Dupin. British writers like Arthur Conan Doyle and Agatha Christie then perfected it during the Golden Age. But here's where it gets interesting. American writers almost immediately rejected the genteel puzzle-solving approach. By the 1920s and 30s, Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler were writing about mean streets, corrupt cops, and private detectives who solve crimes with their fists as often as their brains. The hard-boiled era was born, a deliberate middle finger to the tidy British manor house mystery. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, European writers crafted increasingly sophisticated whodunits where order would always be restored. Poirot would unmask the killer in the drawing room, and normalcy would return. Crime was an aberration, not the norm. Fast forward to today, and those philosophical splits have only deepened. Modern American crime fiction is obsessed with betrayal, not by the institutions or governments, though those feature too, but by the people closest to us, your spouse, your neighbor, the friend who seemed perfect on Instagram. The psychological thriller has become America's signature contribution to 21st century crime fiction. These books are fast, claustrophobic, often featuring unreliable narrators who make you question everything. They're designed to be consumed quickly with short chapters and constant plot twists. There's also a distinctly American flavor to how we portray violence. It's visceral, immediate, often graphic. Our crime novels don't look away. This reflects a culture where violence feels ever present, where crime statistics dominate news cycles, and where individual struggles against chaos is a recurring national narrative. When American crime fiction does tackle systemic issues, it's usually through legal thrillers. John Grisham built an empire showing us how the justice system fails. But even then, the focus always or typically stays relatively narrow, looking at how the process breaks down, not necessarily interrogating the foundations of power itself. European crime fiction, particularly over the past few decades, has become something else entirely. It's a social critique wrapped in a murder investigation. Take Nordic noir, which has become a global phenomenon. Henning Mankell, Stieg Larsson, Yu Nesbø. They're not just writing thrillers, they're examining how supposedly perfect welfare states harbor deep inequalities, how historical traumas echo through generations, how immigration and xenophobia create pressure points in society. The pacing is slower, more deliberate. These novels give you time to think, to reflect, to absorb the atmosphere. Kurt Wallander isn't just solving crimes, he's depressed, exhausted, struggling with personal failures that mirror the moral exhaustion of his entire society. Southern European crime fiction brings its own distinct flavor. Italian and Spanish mysteries grapple with political corruption, organized crime, the lingering shadows of fascist pasts. Andrea Camillari's Inspector Montalbano series set in Sicily uses murder investigations to explore how power operates in the shadows. The key difference? European crime fiction treats crime as a symptom, not an anomaly. When a French thriller addresses the Algerian War or a German novel examines the legacy of the Stasi, they're arguing you can't understand individual crimes without understanding collective history. The differences often also show up physically on the page. American crime novels move. They're written in that clipped, hard-boiled style inherited from the pulp era. Short sentences, snappy dialogue, get to the point. Even contemporary psychological thrillers maintain this velocity. You're supposed to tear through them, heart racing, unable to stop turning pages. European crime fiction slows down. Not because it's boring, trust me it's not, but because atmosphere matters as much as plot. These novels take time to establish place, to build dread, to let you sit with uncomfortable questions. The violence, when it comes, often happens off-page or in the aftermath. The horror is psychological and social rather than purely visceral. This extends to the protagonists themselves. American crime heroes are often lone wolves, private investigators, maverick cops, ordinary people thrust into extraordinary danger. They operate outside systems, trusting only themselves. European detectives are usually institutional figures, police inspectors, magistrates, people working within bureaucracies. Their struggles with red tape, political interference, and their own psychological demons are part of the story. They're not superheroes. They're civil servants trying to do their jobs in societies that make that increasingly difficult. The differences between American and European crime fiction aren't just about geography. They're about how different cultures process fear, justice, and the possibility of redemption. Every thriller you pick up is also a window into a worldview. As a reader, of course, we have the luxury of trying both. So pay attention to what resonates. Do you want fast and furious or atmospheric and contemplative? The who or the why? All right, let's wrap up this week with what I'm reading and watching. Right now, I'm reading To Catch a Storm, the first Iowa Mystery Series book by Mindy Mejia, a new-to-me author. The book is a thriller where a physicist and a psychic team up to solve a missing person case. I know that sounds like a setup for a joke, but here's the thing, I'm enjoying it so far. The writing is tight and clean, and the characters are a little different from the usual mystery stockpile. Mejia doesn't lean into the obvious conflict between science and intuition. Instead, she lets both characters be competent in their own ways. It's refreshing. Worth checking out if you want something that feels a little different with a little different setting. On audio, I'm listening to Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson, which has a thriller hook I just couldn't resist. The narrator is attempting to solve her own murder. After the main character is attacked, she's left knowing that a blow to the head will result in an aneurysm within a week. Can she catch her killer in time? Talk about a ticking clock trope turned up to 11. The premise is bonkers in the best way, and Jackson commits to it fully. Fans of Frida McFadden will likely dig this one. It has that same blend of high concept and propulsive plotting. Finally, I had some real expectation for Shane Black's Play Dirty on Amazon Prime. I genuinely love The Nice Guys and dig Black's scripts and style. Add to that Play Dirty being inspired by, not sure based on is the right phrase, Richard Stark's Parker novels, all-time favorites of mine, and I was all in, and ultimately totally disappointed. Unfortunately, almost nothing about this worked for me. I'm not exactly sure what inspiration Black took from Stark, but that was not Parker. Parker is cold, methodical, professional. This movie is messy, scattered, and tonally confused. It wants to be a caper film, an action comedy, and a noir thriller all at once, and it really doesn't succeed at any of them, at least in my opinion. This might make a decent laundry folding movie to have on in the background, but not much more. You certainly won't remember it 10 minutes after it's over. My advice, leave your sense of logic at the door, or better yet, just go watch The Nice Guys. Or read Stark's The Hunter instead. Either one will be a better use of your time. All right, that's it for this episode. Let me leave you with this week's question. Do you find yourself gravitating toward American or European crime fiction? Are you team fast-paced psychological thriller, or do you prefer the atmospheric slow burn of Nordic noir? Drop me a line with your thoughts. I suspect some of you have strong opinions. You can email me, mike@mikedonahuebooks.com, or find me on Blue Sky @MikeDMystery, or on Instagram and Facebook @MikeDonahueBooks. This has been Unreliable Sources. I'm Mike Donohue. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay sharp, follow the clues, and don't trust anyone who skips to the end.